Welcome back to Good Morning LaLa. Nothing like transformation other than spirit and intuition. Lee Harris is in the house. I talked about energy speaks. I like it. I love this conversation. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Welcome.
How are you guys? Hi.
So take us back. When was the first moment you realized you had the ability to channel?
So when I was 22 years old, I was on the tube train in London and I heard the voice of my guides, and it was like an immediate thing that happened. But in the years running up, I had a sense that I had an intuition, but I didn't really, like many people, believe it, or I thought it should be more complicated. So, but it was when I heard my guides that things really landed and my whole life changed.
So let's talk about it. It's said that we all have 7 guides. I don't necessarily believe it has to be that exact number, whatever. What's your experience with guides?
My experience is that we can all access a higher power. So for some people, you might, let's say you channel for yourself. You sit down and you go, what does my soul want me to hear today? You write a few sentences. You might feel that you're speaking to your guides. You might feel you're speaking to God. You might feel that you're speaking to just a wise part of your own soul system. But for me, the thing is really, we can all go beyond the limits of our human experience. And if you do sit there and write those few sentences for yourself each morning, you'll be amazed how you will feel when you look back at what you've written, whether you think it's your guide or
because it
something
can
else.
be confusing. I mean, if you know, spiritually we believe it's all one, but then if we have deities, it's almost like a duality, right? So I do agree with you, like it's really just your higher self, right? So talk to us how you get in touch. What do the guides say to you?
Well, it's interesting. So they'll talk about all kinds of different things. So I could ask a specific question for my life and it will be quite limited. But whenever I channel for groups, or in the book, we have all of these different chapters. Like they talk about sex and sexual energy and how that shows up.
We
in our
want that
lives.
guided for sure. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to argue that. That's the after show.
And they talk about the essence of relationships. There's a chapter called Loving Money and how money is this very emotional force on the planet. And so they just kind of go around the houses of our whole experience and give their energetic perspective on what's really going on underneath the way that we're living.
Just love it. And there's such profound wisdom that you share in the book. I'd love for you to talk about some of the things that you most cherish or value or appreciate in some of the lessons that sort of guides have shared with you.
You know, one of the most useful things for me personally, they gave a sentence many, many years ago, and I use it still, and you can practice it if you feel overwhelmed or stuck. I release any energies and emotions that are not mine. And, you know, let's say you have this weird argument with someone, or there's this friction that's in a room, and you leave and you feel a little off. So it's something that I've learned. It's a little bit like cord cutting. You're basically saying, I come back to me, I'll come back to all of my lessons, but if I've picked up anything in the world that isn't good for me or isn't aligned with me, I can just let it go. And it's amazing how those verbal commands work.
So could you give us maybe a couple tips on how a person at home could do that, or how we could do that? I mean, we come in contact with so many different people and personalities every single day. How can we protect our energy?
Well, you know, for me, it's become not so much because protect our energy is important, but for me, it's kind of almost like clean and refresh your energy. So one of the things they've talked about is we can all go on a retreat for a week and, you know, get to this place of Zen and space, but they say you have to take moments throughout the day. So even just taking a moment where you just go, okay, I'm just going to close my eyes. It's a little crazy here. Just going to close my eyes for 1 minute. No one will bother me because I've got my eyes closed. And, you know, hey, maybe if you have kids, they're going to bother you. But you can
just
keep...
described our breaks, actually. Just sit here in silence.
Right.
like power breaks.
I always say it's like easy to be, you know, a guru or whatever in Himalayas meditating, but in the concrete jungle of Los Angeles, this is some advanced shit around here, okay?
Absolutely. That's so
tell
true.
us what the guys would say, like what's going on energetically, culturally right now. We've got a lot of turbulence, like always. I don't think it's going to change. We've got a relative experience here, but what are the guides saying about what's happening?
Well, they talk about this being a hugely transformational time and that has been prophesized, as we know, for a very long time. So they say that actually the one thing that strikes me is they say there's an enormous amount of light pouring onto the planet, which can be interesting when you look at how certain things are playing out, because you can see darkness, you can see shadow, but they say, no, there's an enormous amount of light pouring onto the planet. And that's what's raising all these shadows. But if you look at some of the things that we've seen, like culturally and politically the last couple of years, there are some really difficult things happening, but they're bringing a wave of healing. So I think of like the Me Too movement. very difficult, but it's triggering a whole healing on the planet that's uncomfortable but necessary.
Birthing pains.
How
Yeah.
can you tell the difference between your guides or something that you're sort of channeling from a higher being yourself versus your mind?
Well, because, and this is something I often tell people, when you first start channeling, usually your guides are like way nicer to you than you are. So you're like, people are often like, well, it's just loving. And I'm like, well, do you speak to yourself like that all day? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, then go with that for a while. And then the information will get better the more they get you used to this vibration of love and support.
So tell everyone where they can find and follow and work with you.
Right, so my website is leeharrisenergy.com, and all of my work is there, and I put free videos out regularly on YouTube, and yeah, so leeharrisenergy.com.
Nice.
Oh,
I
Fantastic.
think it's so important for people to know it's not just for the prophets, that anyone is able to channel, and that's their birthright. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much for
Thank
embodying
you.
that. Yes. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.